I'm Alexander Langston. This is my major writing assignment 5 for Composition 2. To provide additional context, I watched Persepolis through YouTube movies as I missed the class where we finished a movie. So to begin with my thesis, in Persepolis, Strappi uses the black and white color palette and strategically distant framing to reveal how authoritarian power erases individuality, especially in moments of state violence such as the early uprising when the Shah's forces fire into the protest crowd and the protesters evolve into pure black space. And in the background, you can see the Shah's forces here, and you can see how they're blacked out, and it removes a lot of the characteristics from them besides their white eyes, and it's how she uses this black darkness to portray her message. So today I will analyze the missing piece in Persepolis, focusing on how Satrapi's use of color, lighting, and shot design communicates political and emotional meaning. This approach matters because Persepolis does not portray violence through blood or realism. Instead, Satrapi conveys it through psychological and cultural destruction caused by dictatorships through the visual erasure. The film becomes its argument. Color, framing, and contrast reveal the emotional truth of living under authoritarian rule. So, the film's use of black and white is itself a political statement. The removal of color reflects how authoritarian regimes remove nuance, individuality, and emotional complexity. Under the dictatorship, people are forced into rigid categories: loyal or traitor, pure or impure, believer or infidel. The monochrome world mirrors this binary thinking, showing a reality strip of stability. So you can see this here, and this is after the Islamic Revolution, when the Islamic government comes into power. You can see how it strips the character from the prisoners and the guard before they are executed. So to continue, black functions as the most attractive and consuming element in the film. It is not just background darkness, it spreads and devours the image. In the uprising sequence where all the Shah's soldiers fire into the crowd, at 8:22, the people lose all detail, becoming faceless silhouettes until the frame turns almost completely black. The missing scene literally erases them from existence. The visual disappearance expresses that authoritarian power does not just kill, it makes people invisible by removing them from history itself. Use of framing in the shot identifies this idea of erasure. Satrapi often places Marjorie or entire crowds in this wide distance shot that leave large amounts of negative space around the figures. These wide frames emphasize how small some figures appear against the vast machinery in the state. As she grows older, the repression increases, the framing again distant and empty, a visual sign that the regime has reclaimed power over her identity. The same visual language continues in Uncle Anoush's imprisonment and execution sequence at around 22:20 within the YouTube movie. As Marge narrates the story, the darkness overtakes the entire frame until the only small white details remain. Satrapi avoids realistic violence. Instead, she uses black negative space to represent how political power erases both body and memory. The regime's violence is made visible through absence, and this can be seen in this scene, as in this scene it fades to black, and all that is left is just Marjorie and Uncle Anoush before he is executed. And to continue this idea of that it does not show violence, it shows erasure, we never see Uncle Anoush get executed. We do see, though, is it fades to black, and later that night as Marjorie speaks to God, she asks why he was executed, why did he die? And another example is during the bombing sequence, where at about 41 minutes and 52 seconds, when Marjorie sees the rubble of her neighborhood. The frame is nearly pure black with only fragments of light outstraying the destruction. The lack of color and detail turn the scene into a distraction of emphasizing loss rather than a spectacle. While this scene I have pulled up showcases a lot of white, it also fades to black right after this. This is showcasing the destruction after the missile hits near Marjorie's home. By contrast, the white in Persepolis represents imagination, integrity, and the possibility of identity. Her childhood scenes often use these white colors to portray her childhood, obviously. And another example I can think of, which does use this white, is during her punk phase when she goes to the market and she does purchase Iron Maiden. Of course, her Punk Rules jacket is completely white, and a lot of her childhood scenes from when she's very little, such as when she's chasing the boy whose father is not a communist, one of the Shah soldiers, it's completely light, especially when she's with her childhood friends. So, together, color and framing turn Persepolis into a visual argument. Darkness becomes a regime's power, and limited framing shows the world shrinking. Overall, Persepolis transforms visual design into a political language. The film's black and white palette and distant shot framing reveal how totalitarianism erases individuality and identity. Satrapy rejects cinematic spectacle in the favor of symbolic absence. She shows the consequences of oppression not through visible bloodshed, but through the way darkness consumes the frame. This approach forces the viewer to experience erasure as both visual and emotional truth. In doing so, Persepolis demonstrates that the greatest violence of authoritarianism is not whatever it shows, but what it makes disappear.